you have a data warehouse in the transformational data flow. Just to explain you why do we need this staging data flow? Why can't we just do it straight away from the transformation data flow? So if you just take this off and keep this transformation data flow, what it does is it could hit queries multiple times for the data source, which could be a database or a production DB, and it would have to hit queries multiple times for the specific data source, uh, and that can be a performance issue for the database as well, for the specific data source as well. So to avoid that, we have a staging environment where the data is staged as it is, ingested as it is from the tables in the database over basically the data source into the staging environment, and from that you can just do multiple reads as per the requirement. There will be no harm for the data source if you do multiple reads from transformation data flows to staging data flows. So that is the important part of this. Moving further I think I explained about the semantic model, the Power BI dataset. So after the transformation data flow, you have basically a data warehouse in hand, and afterwards you will use Power BI dataset and build a semantic model out of that. So semantic model with the data modeling concepts, you will be building on that. But this particular architecture is does not need much effort to develop. It requires least effort to develop compared to the modern data warehouse architecture I showed you in the previous slide. Uh, so this is something that even a business user can do with self-service data prep and all the other and the concepts involved with that very easily with minimal knowledge. But there is a problem here. There are some features that are used in these data flows that are only available for premium. So what does that mean? That means there are some. That means that you will have to use premium in order to make an analytics platform work. In order to make an analytics platform work in order to make an analytics platform work with Power BI. So that is a because usually as I'm aware of the premium pricing, it's around $5,000. So that's a really big amount, and that's something you don't want to start up with. And so getting that's not a that's not that can that might not be the best way for you to start up with. So some of these features that are available in premium are incremental data loading in data flows, and also so incremental data loading, I think anyone who had done data warehousing before might be knowing the concept of incremental data loading, where you load the latest data uh, and does not disturb the historical data. You load in only the latest data into your data warehouse or the data storage environment. So that's basically it about incremental data loading. Then there is another feature called link entities. Right. So link entities is a feature that's available in Power BI data flows. So what that does is it refers basically a data flow refers the output tables of another data flow uh, to perform the particular task. So basically a data flow referring the output of another data flow and getting that in as the source as the input, and doing the necessary operations with that, and having the output table out of that. So to for the data flow to get the what do you call get the output tables from another data flow, a link entity is required. So a link entity is a premium feature, and that cannot be done. So basically, in other words, this architecture is not going to work without Power BI Premium, which is um, not really a great, not really a happy news. So with consideration to all these factors, I personally, um, with consideration to all these factors, built just simplify this with consideration to the architecture that's recommended by Microsoft and everything. I built my own architecture in a much more simplified way. I just built my own architecture, uh, which can be a startup architecture, which can be. So why I am saying that is for some scenarios, for some requirements, this architecture might not work out properly. So the reason is it only requires a pro license. So with the pro license, only the features that are related to the pro license can be used. So to fulfill certain requirements in a data warehouse, you will have to go through certain workarounds. Um, with the if you are going with a pro license. So this is a pro license architecture. And if I explain this to you, how I decided to come up with this, we have the data source, and then we have the staging data flow as with the previous architecture which I showed here, and we have the Power BI data set. So what the Power BI so in here it's different now. Now staging data flow, up to the staging data flow, all the operations are similar as per the recommended architecture, where the data is staged as is from the relevant staging data from the relevant data source. Only thing that's different here is the incremental loading. I will be showing you the workaround for that. That can work in certain situations and might not work in certain situations when I'm doing the demo. And so we have the staging data flow where, as I told you previously, stages the data as is from the database. And afterwards, then we have the Power BI data set that is used here. So what the Power BI data set does is it transforms it does the transformations also. The transformations are not handled in a separate data flow as is, as shown in the recommended architecture. So in here, in the Power BI dataset, you do the transformations, and you basically the semantic model is created there itself. Uh, and because the reason for that is the link entity. So the link entity feature is not a premium is not a feature that's available for pro license. So as a workaround for that, I decided to take out the transformation data flow and keep the transformation task in the Power BI dataset itself. Personally, I don't think it would be a massive issue, because even before these tools come, we Power BI data flows I think came in around 2 years back. Even before that, what we did was we did the transformations and built in the semantic model in the Power BI dataset itself. So personally, I don't think it would be a issue. So basically, you are bringing a particular operation in a particular workload into a different environment, into the Power BI dataset, and handling it there. So that's just a basic walkthrough of how this had happened, how I had come up with this. So as I told you previously, this is not the recommended one. The recommended has premium features, and it might be costly for everyone to handle with Power BI. So I had just based on what I had experienced, I had just simplified and come up with uh, architecture that can be used with just a pro license, and it can work, and at certain situations it might not work as well. So just a heads up on that. And afterwards, after so this is the key aspect that I wanted to show in the startup architecture. So afterwards, you will be moving into the demos. So it's demo time, and we have Power BI data flow. I need to demo the Power BI data flow first, which is the staging data flow, and let's quickly move into that. Um, so in your screen now, you can see the staging data flow. I had accessed that. So if I just go into this is my workspace, data flow and the environment, and inside that I have a data flow here, staging data flow. And when you click on that, you can see all the tables. They are actually known as entities because, as I told you previously, this is used to consolidate data elements. So entities, that's the actual purpose of that, but it can be used for data warehousing under particular restrictions as well. um, so you can see all the entities, all the output tables that you had dragged and that you had created and built, and that you had basically output tables that you had staged as is from the data source. Um, so in here, what I would like to show is I would like to just show you around this. So firstly, I would start with the calendar table. So we have the calendar table here. This is not something that's coming from the source. This is something that's created with Power Query itself. So if I just go in and show, you can see the entire Power Query that's used here. So, and I had to organize all the queries into separate groups so that it's easy for navigation and stuff. So we have the calendar table here. It's running with two parameters, start date and the end date, and it's created here with Power Query. And the next thing I would like to show is the other entity tables. So we have product, we have customer, and we have something called person, which you should join with customer to get the customer names and all that. By the way, this is for this demo I had used AdventureWorks database. Sorry, I didn't tell you guys previously about this. AdventureWorks database is a source. I had just ingested data from the source AdventureWorks database, and I had created the related entities as per the requirement. Related entities, yeah, related output tables as per the requirement. And so those are the entities, those are the master data, master tables that I'm playing around with. And then you have the transactional tables, which are sales order detail and sales order header. And I had just taken in transaction tables here as well without any incremental loading. The reason for that is I have very old data. So if I just apply the incremental loading workaround for this, it might not really work out. So just to give you a brief you out again on that, the source is AdventureWorks database, and you have this is the staging data flow that you can see on the screen here, and the data is loaded from the required tables from the Azure AdventureWorks database into the staging data flow into the as output tables in the staging data flow. There are no transformations done here. It's loaded as is. So that's what's happening here. Just to brief you out of all that I told. And maybe I would show you guys how to create an entity. So you go in here and add entity. And so my database is an Azure SQL DB in AdventureWorks 2017 DB in Azure SQL. So I will just show you around that. I would just take that and maybe just take in a sample table and show you how it works. And when you just enter the server name here, you can see that my credentials will appear. The reason is I had logged into this previously, so I'm not really sure about the mechanism that's behind this, but it saves the data in an encrypted way, so that you don't have to type your credentials every time you log in for the specific account, of course. And so I had entered my database name, and I had entered my server name, and I had given my login credentials, and afterwards I would be I would click on next, and you can see all the tables that are all the views that are in the AdventureWorks 2017 DB. Just to maybe I'll get something else. Maybe I'll go for something like special offer just to show you guys. Yep, that's a small table, so let's go for that. And I will just click on transform, and it would load the data from the source, and you can see it here. So it says sales special offer. And of course, another thing you guys need to keep in mind is there are certain, these kind of columns are not really supported for data loading in data flow. So that's what it says in here. So if you go in here, it says the query sales special offer contains columns with complex types that cannot be loaded. So what you need to do is remove that. But just in case you have references to other tables, you have a lot of references to other tables like that. So it's a you will have to spend a lot of time doing that, right? So although you don't need to go through that process like that. So what you can do is you can just click on the warning, and then it asks you whether would you like to remove these specific columns, and when you click on yes, it would remove automatically. It would remove it by itself. And so you can see the table that column is taken off, which are reference columns to other tables. And we have the we have the special offer dataset. Maybe I'll just load it and keep it for you guys to get an understanding. When we go to the semantic model, I can import and show you that itself. So I would just load that and keep it. And something else I would like to show you in this data flow environment is the incremental refresh. Why we can't do this incremental refresh? Incremental refresh, I would show you how it should be done if it's in premium, but it's not. Yeah, I would show you the actual way with the feature that's available, how it should be done here. And I would show you the workaround as well, how I came about that. So firstly, just to show you how to go through the incremental refreshing process. So we have the sales order header, and then you can see, so we have the sales order header and sales order detail as our transactional table. So in these two transactional tables, transactional tables will need to be we need to have incremental data loading because these are transactional tables, and you can't afford to load the entire data set every time you run this this data flow schedule, because that's not a good practice. You should have them in an incremental, load them in an incremental way. So that's that's the best practice when it comes to data warehousing. But yeah, like you can have really small data sources which are transaction tables, but really small in size. So under such circumstances, you don't really need to bother about incremental data loading, because just to give you an idea on that, previously incremental data before even data flows, and we didn't have data flows back in time, and we just had data sets only. So in those data sets, even we didn't have a feature called incremental data loading. So what we did was, when we built solutions, when we built very small Power BI only solutions, we just we had to load the entire data. Sometimes it gets, sometimes it loads thousands and sometimes millions as well. So it's not really a big problem. It depends on your comfortability, but definitely incremental data loading is a concept that is a best practice. So if you can, if you are comfortable following that, it would be great if you can actually follow that. And just to show you how that works, so we have an incremental refresh icon right at the corner of the page, or corner of the particular entity or the output table. You can click on that, and after that all you need to do is just to turn on the incremental refresh, and then select the particular column, and select the particular column in which you should do the incremental refresh. So that means what is the date column that you should use as a base to understand whether this is a historical record or whether this is a new record that's not available in the destination. So for that purpose, we need to use we need to specify the respective column, and afterwards you have to say what are the from what time period, based on this particular modified date column, to for what time period should you not refresh the data, should you store the data and keep. So that can so you can just mention years here, and based on the historical data you have in the DB, you can mention an appropriate range for that, maybe 10 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 2 years, based on your data load and the data you have in the source. And refresh rows from the past, that is where so what this is asking is, so based on this particular date column, so like how many days or how many months or how many years of data should I refresh? How like what uh, data should be refreshed and brought into the semantic model, brought in to the data flow. And in here, so you can mention days, and maybe past 1 day, 1 week, depending on the when you run the when you run or when you run the data flow, it might differ, it would differ. So that's how you create a incremental data load in this way. And now I will show you the workaround that I came up with. That does so. This workaround will require you to load the data flow, to refresh the data flow every day. If not, there will be gaps in terms of data. So my assumption at this stage, so I would go for that, and I would quickly get a data source and get the sales order header here. My assumption is that the data source or the database, so I would type it here. Sorry, my assumption is that most of the time it would be a database. It would be a database would be a source. A database would be a source to a data flow. So at least far as I know, like most of the majority of the time, data flows are used with databases or structured data, you can say it that way. And so sorry about this. So what should be done is you should go to, after entering the credentials, you should go to advanced options. And in advanced options, what you need to do is you just need to base your respective, you just need to bring in data with a query. So in this query, as you can see, is based on the current date and the modified date. So what happens is if the data is modified within the t minus 1 date, and it would be brought in to your data flow. So that's what it does. So for my t minus 1 date, of course, I don't have any data, so I would not be bringing anything in, but I would just take that in and just show you guys. So yeah, so you can see the query here in the Power Query. So it would get in the t minus 1 data, and it would load in. So this is not really not a recommended way. This is just a workaround. I should be really clear with that. So because this does not store any historical data, this with this mechanism, the transactional data only for a t minus 1 date will be stored in the data flow. Everything else will be handled. Everything else will be handled with the incremental loading feature that is in the dataset, Power BI dataset. So what you do is you load the data, you load the t minus 1 data in here, and the t minus 1 data will be loaded in, imported in with the use of datasets, and with the use of the Power BI dataset for the specific table, and it would be loaded in as incremental data loading as the for the past 1 day. So it would capture this data and put that into the existing, apply that into the existing set of data and append that basically, and you would have a full data set there. So this is not a recommended way, as I told you. So the recommended way is the architecture which I showed you previously, that is recommended by Microsoft, and that requires premium capacity, which is not something everyone can go for. So it's not really something recommended. I would just exit that from there, and I would like to show you the next step here. So the next step here, I would like to show you about the link entities now, which is the next step. Link entities. Now, link entities are also a really good feature. So I don't have any entities to just load and show, but you can basically load the data, but you can't refresh your data flow after you load that if you don't have a premium capacity. So you can, how you create a link entity is by just going to add link entities, which is available in by the side of the add entities option. You can drop down will come up, and you just need to sign in with your credentials, organizational account, and afterwards you can click on next, and it should show you all the entities that are available. So I would not now open this. So you can see even the existing ones in here. You can just link them out and you can just bring them in. So even with the other data flows, even with any other workspaces, you can bring them in the same way, and you can basically refer other output tables in basically other entities in data flows with a different data flow, and perform your required task. So that is a feature, a premium feature that is not available in here. So that is it for me to show in the stage and data flow here. And let's move into the second demo quickly, and that would be the data transformations and the semantic model, which you saw previously in the architecture that I came up with. I would just show you that quickly. I think we are way ahead, way late in terms of time, so let's rush with that. And so the semantic model is in my Power desktop. So this is the semantic model, how it looks like at the moment. As you can see, it forms a star schema, and it's basically a semantic model. And you have the dimensions as you saw previously: product, territory, calendar, and customer. So if I just move into the transform data and show you what had been done now, what had been done here. What I had done here, I would start with the transaction data. We have the two transaction data sources that we got in from the Power BI data flow output tables, staging data flow, and with the use of that, I had merged those two and created the sales table here. So you can see the merge condition here, I guess. Yes, so sales order detail and sales order header. So I had merged these two, and what I had done is I had removed the unnecessary columns. After merging, I had removed the unnecessary columns, and I had just expanded the necessary columns from the order detail table, and just a bit of reordering to make it look nicer, and just renaming and grouping. Just basic Power Query steps that had been followed to build this fact table. And afterwards, you have, I would like to show calendar, which is the easiest, of course. Nothing to do there. You had done all the Power Query in the data flow itself. You just need to, I would show you how you can import a output table from data flow later on. What I did was I just imported the data flow in here, and in here also there is so much changes. Territory, just removed unwanted columns and just made it user friendly for the end user. But yeah, there is a bit of work in terms of making it user friendly. Yep. And also you have the product table, a bit of changes there, maybe replacement of values to unknown just to make it look more compelling for the end user, and remove unwanted columns and basically a replace functionality. And customer column, as I told you previously, with AdventureWorks DB, you need to connect to a table called person. Person is like a master table. So you have customers, employees, and everything is maintained in that particular table. And what you do is you get that master table in with your custom table, just merge it and get your necessary columns from the person, and with the combination of the custom table, and remove the unwanted columns. And I had just added the customer name rather than having it as first name and last name. I had just brought that together, and just a quick rename on the customer last as customer first name, last name, and so on. So and also, I should mention that when it comes to user friendliness, there are certain basics that need to be followed in terms of attributes. You need to build spaces and make sure that it's user friendly enough for the end users, because these are naming formats that are used by developers actually. So we can't expect the business users or the end users to be comfortable with that. So we should make sure that we have spaces, and it looks compelling enough for the business users to consume. And so afterwards, this is it for me to show in the Power Query view or the transform data view, Power Query editor. I would just close this down, and I would just show you how to import a data flow, how to import a table, how to import an output table in a data flow to your environment. So how you do it is, I would go back again, get data, And in get data, you have your options here. Sorry about that. So in get data, you have your options here, and in the third option, you can see something called Power BI data flows. So click on Power BI data flows, and you would be directed into a window like this, which shows all the data flows that you have in the workspaces you have access to it. So this demo workspace is data flow R&D environment. So I would just go into that, and I would go to the staging data flow, and you can see all the output tables in the staging data flow. Output tables in the staging data flow, which you can import from here. So I took in special offer in the staging data flow just to demo you guys. So maybe I will take that in and just show you guys how you should import a table. So at this stage, there is no data. The problem is I didn't run a refresh for the data flow after adding that entity. So you need to run a refresh to load the data completely into the particular into your data set, and for the data flow, and to have the entire set of data in the data flow, you need to have a you need to run a proper refresh. So that was not done since it was time consuming, but it's something that that should be done in order for you to see data here. And that's about it in terms of importing a data flow. And I would like to show you the incremental refresh a bit. I hadn't done the incremental refresh for the fact table, but I can definitely show you how that should be done, and how, because the reason I didn't have incremental refresh here is because I don't my data is really old. So it's at Adventure XDB. I think it's from 2013, 2014. That range of data is there. So I can't really show the productivity or the effect of incremental data loading with such data. But yes, I can insert data and show, but so but it's not it's actually a bit time consuming, so I had just left that aside, because every time you load a new record, you should run that through the staging data flow. That means you should refresh the staging data flow, and then only you can bring it here. So, and the new record here, and then load it through incremental data loading, which is a bit time consuming part of things. So I had kind of omitted that. So how you do this? So I can't do this here straight away like that, because I need to give a specific what do you call, a specific range. I need to create the incremental refresh based on, as with the data flows, I need to create that based on parameters for the to store rows in the last which kind of period, and to refresh rows in which period should it refresh the rows. I mean, that should be maintained. That should be handled with the use of parameters. So I haven't built any parameters here. So basically you need to build the parameters, and just mention to what period do you need to refresh the rows, and to what period you need to show the rows without doing a refresh for those. So it can be as with the staging data flow, as I showed you in the incremental data loading in the staging data flow. In here also you can mention the period, whether it's year, month, day, and that can be done. And basically a numeric figure can be given for the refresh last rows in the last, and store rows in the last. That can be handled with the use, that's handled with the use of parameters. And you can basically do the incremental loading here. So what this would do is, so in here, for this to work, for my architecture to work, what should happen here is it should refresh rows in the last 1 day, and store rows for the last whatever the years it is, maybe 5 years, and so on. Um, why it's coming last one day is because as you saw in the query, it gets the -1, which is a t-1 date, and loads the data of the t-1 day, which is yesterday's day. When it comes to here, it detects that there are particular records for yesterday's date, and it would refresh that and append them into the sales fact table. So that's what actually happens in the incremental refresh. But as I told you previously, like these features weren't available when we were actually developing Power BI solutions, and we actually were able to manage ourselves with other techniques such as aggregations and stuff like that. Uh, when in terms of where we needed to use incremental loading, we managed to refresh it without any problem, without incremental loading back in time. So yeah, you can handle things without incremental loading, but as I told you previously, incremental loading is a best practice in terms of data warehousing. So it's always necessary to follow that. I mean, it's necessary to follow that, but even if you can't, it doesn't mean yeah, the entire thing would crash. Basically, you can, based on the, yes, it would definitely crash if you have a very high data load, but if you have a decent data load that can be handled, I don't think it would crash. You can still handle it. It's just that the refresh would get you time, and yeah. So that's about it in terms of that. And I would like to move to the slide deck again. So we ran through the two demos, and I would like to spread some light towards now Power BI data flows and O data warehouses factor. So now I had showed you the recommended model for developing an analytics platform with Power BI only, with the use of data flows and the data sets. And I also showed you how to build a data warehouse, how to build an analytics platform with the Azure components based on the modern data warehouse architecture. So you guys might be having a problem in terms of now whether we need to go with info and analytics platform, whether to build an analytics platform, whether we need to go with a Power BI data flow, or whether we need to go with a with the modern data warehouse, whether we need to go with Power BI, or whether we need to go with the modern data warehouse architecture. So I had just put down a few considerations for you to help you out in making that decision. That basically depends on these key considerations. So first consideration is effort. In terms of effort, as I told you previously, with Power BI data flows, there is minimal effort, and with Power BI, you can get the job done with minimal effort. Maybe you don't even need developers to jump in, and maybe you can do it by yourself with minimal development knowledge and minimum technical knowledge. And but when it comes to a data warehouse, when it comes to a modern data warehouse architecture, um, you will need developers to come in, and it will be time consuming, and you will need to developers to work on it. um, um, and it would be a time consuming process as well. And the other point is scalability. Now if you use Power BI Premium with data flows, yes, there are certain scalability options that are available with the compute, and you can basically scale as per your data load as per the requirement. But with comparison to the modern data warehouse architecture and like something like Azure Synapse Analytics and other maybe even Azure SQL DB, the scalability options there is really high. There are a lot of options for you to scale, and there are a lot of scalability options with comparison to Power BI Premium. So that's a bit of detail on scalability. So if you really need to scale, um, if you really need to scale into different levels in at different times as per different scalability options, maybe yeah, to cater different workloads and stuff like that. So the scalability options are higher in a data warehouse, basically Azure Synapse Analytics, or in a even in an Azure SQL DB, compared to the Power BI Premium and the data flows with the Power BI Premium. Yes, there will be scalability in the higher scalability for the Azure Data Lake, which is storage scalability. That will be there, but in terms of data preparation and data loading and data extraction, and for the stuff like for data reading, data writing, and whatever it is, whatever the operations you do. So for those operations, scalable, there are a lot of scalability options in if you go to something like Azure Synapse Analytics, or which is the previously known as Azure SQL Data Warehouse, or even an Azure SQL DB has better scalability options. And the other point is user friendliness. So when talking about user friendliness, Power BI data flows have a higher level of user friendliness compared to data warehouse. As I told you previously, it's something that is related with the effort. So since Power BI data flows are really user friendly and you don't need any, you can do things codelessly very easily. Self-service data preparation and all that can be done very easily. Uh, because of the user friendliness that's available in Power BI data flows. But that's not really the case in a data warehouse such as Azure Synapse Analytics or Azure SQL DB. It's not really user friendly. You need to have developers with specific technical expertise for such developments, and because it's not something that everyone can do without any expertise. You need a particular set of people with expertise to get through that development. And also dependencies. Now, with Power BI data flows, you don't have any external dependencies. It's just Power BI data flows. You have the output tables there itself, and the data preparation and data loading happens with the Power BI data flows itself, and there are no external dependencies for that. It's just a Power BI data flow, and it can run by itself, and it can manage stuff by itself. But when it comes to a data warehouse, it can't do certain tasks. It can't do operations by itself. It needs a data movement tool ideally. Hello, hello.
Hello, Thimantha.
Hello,
Thimantha,
I'm
can you hear me?
sorry, I just dropped my internet connection just dropped out.
No,
Um,
it's okay.
Yeah, so this is just a final point, dependencies. So in terms of dependencies, as I told you previously, data warehouses can't run by itself. It should have a particular data movement tool to handle it by itself, data movement tool for its operations. But Power BI data flows can be handled by itself. So that's something I just needed to update you guys on, just to keep an eye on when it comes to deciding whether to use Power BI data flows for data warehouse development or data warehouse. or an actual data warehouse in Azure, with maybe even Azure SQL DB or Azure Synapse Analytics or stuff like that. So that those are certain considerations that you should keep in mind. So that is it from me today. That is it from me today. I'm sorry. I think I just took extra time as well. I tried to finish it a bit faster, but there were a lot of things for me to explain. So um, sorry about that. And anyone, if anyone's interested, please provide me with the feedback as well. That's really useful. I'm trying to improve myself further and further, and to contribute, give my contribution to any user group or anyone who is willing to. So I just want to improve myself further and further. So please, if you guys are interested, if you guys can just provide me a bit of feedback, so that I can improve myself and maybe do a better job for you guys and for everyone in the future. So for everyone, for all the other users and everyone who's willing me to who wants me to share my experience in the future. So thank you very much for Azan for giving me this opportunity. It's a privilege for me to speak in a Bangladesh user group. Uh, Actually, this is the first invitation I received, from somewhere outside Sri Lanka to speak. So it's a really honor to speak in the Bangladesh user group, Bangladesh Tech Forum. So thank you very much for everything. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and sorry for getting a bit of extra time. I think I had to start my session around I think 8:30, so a bit late. So I just had to. I wasn't able to like make things faster because I just wanted you guys to understand the concepts which are really important moving further. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Azhar.
Thank you, Thimantha, for your nice presentation, and it's a good presentation, and I think it's a beginning presentation, and if anyone follow this, he will maybe get an uh, intermediate level expertise in Power BI, and hopefully in short time we will upload it to YouTube so that the audience who may not be attend in this session maybe view the session and get their knowledge and expertise. I have a question to you that in next February we have going to planning a Power Platform Day session.
Right.
What type of topic can be uh, beneficial for the people who are want to work on Power BI after this sequential in a sequential way that it may be their first video and
Mhm.
what will be the second topic that will increase more exp,
Yeah,
ex,
I understand your point. I think semantic model development is something that every Power BI developer or every one who's developing Power BI models should be really aware of. So I think a session like that would be really useful for the community, for Power BI users as well. They need to understand the best concepts that they need to follow. They need to understand like how they can develop a semantic model properly. So if I talk about the visualization part of things, it's something I think anyone can do. They can just drop in a visual, just drop in the measures and build the visuals as per their requirement. So, but when it comes to semantic model development, there are a lot of certain considerations that everyone needs to pay attention to. For example, the basic star schema, it should, or the snowflake schema, the schema that's been followed, and how you can optimize semantic model, and how you can make it user friendly, how you can make it effective enough for the business users to use. So there are a lot of topics that you can talk about when it comes to building a semantic model with Power BI, because the visualization part, the reporting part, it's not that difficult. You have tons of resources online, and it's not the most difficult thing. But to understand the concept of semantic modeling is something important for every Power BI user, because at the end of the day, you just it's data that you consume. So visualization, because you need to have a semantic model with the proper best concepts, best practices, in order to get the full advantage of that, in order to make data-driven business decisions and so on. So that's really important. Yeah, that's just a feedback on that. So yeah.
Thank you very much, and we are advance inviting you for the next session in February.
Yeah,
Hopefully, it will
thank you.
be
And
very enjoyable to the user
yeah,
community member.
sure, I'll be definitely there, and I'm more than happy to contribute. And please just share your feedback if I had done something wrong, or if I'm weak at something, or if I'm not good at something, or if something needs to be improved. Anything you can just say, and I just need to improve myself further and further on this and contribute better to the community. So if there are mistakes, just point it out. So that's the biggest benefit that I can have. When you guys point out the mistakes to me, I can correct myself really easily. So those are so that would be highly appreciated. Yeah.
Thank you, Thimantha. Thank
Yeah.
you very much for your time and effort, and it's a great pleasure for us to get you with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, and hope
Thank you
to
very much.
contribute further for this community, for this Bangladesh community, with my expertise, and hoping to do something great with you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Thank you everyone for joining the session. It's a long session for 5 hours, and we have explained. We have started our journey. Started our journey from software architecture, database architecture, and DevOps, DevOps concept, and after that we have discussed on analytics, semantic analytics model. It will be very useful for the community, we think, and thank you everyone for joining the session. And also we are very much thankful and grateful for the time and effort of the speakers. Thank you everyone for joining. Goodbye, and our next session will our user group event will arrange on next 25th 20th February, and that will be the Power Platform Day, and hopefully we will arrange a nice session for you guys, and it will be beneficiary for the people who are working on Power BI and Power Apps and Power Platform as well. Thank you very much. Goodbye.